At the end of the fourth episode of Classroom of the Elite, there are a couple lines of internal monologue that really caught my attention.
巻き込まれたくない。私の持っている仮面を誰にも知られたくない。
Now, when I first saw this, I initially thought it was some kind of throwaway line, something that would be used as a plot device to drive this character arc forward. And while it does end up doing that, the more I thought about its placement in the series, the more applicable it became to its central themes. Let me explain. First, let's start off with the premise. The Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing High School is a prestigious school established by the government, which nearly all of its students are 100% guaranteed in getting a place into university or finding employment. The school also has a point system in place, where each class gets 100,000 points each month that can be exchanged for currency. Since the school already provides them with dormitories and a massive shopping centre to buy whatever they want, it's less like a school campus and more like a mini society. And while that is an interesting discussion by itself, there's one crucial detail that the school leaves out that changes everything. And unfortunately for Class D, they learn it the hard way. The amount of points that the students receive is based on each class's behaviour and overall performance, but we find out that Class D has performed so terribly that their overall points end up being 0, meaning that in the eyes of the school, they are worth nothing. The reason I find this twist to be brilliantly executed is because it lulls not only the characters but also the audience into a false sense of security. There wasn't any mention of it in the synopsis leading up to the series release, so we were essentially going into this blind. It puts us in the character's shoes, which makes the twist that much more effective. It also sets us up for something more sinister than we could have ever imagined. But the plot isn't the only thing withdrawing information from us, as these characters are also hiding something. Let's start off with the face of Class B, Honami Ichinose. On the surface, she comes across as a friendly figure amongst her classmates, but underneath there's more than she's letting on. For example, there's this one scene where the main character, Kiyotaka Aonokoji, happens to come across her behind the school. The reason for why she's out here is because she's being confessed to by one of her classmates. And instead of being honest about her feelings, Ichinose decides to get Aonokoji involved and lie about being in a relationship with him. If he didn't then speak up about it, she would have actively made their situation even worse. It shows that no matter how reliable she seems, she can also be very disingenuous. Further proof of this is when she shows him her student ID, which reveals that she has acquired over 2 million points. Which begs the question, how did she acquire that many points? Is it because she's a hardworking student, or is there something darker lurking underneath it? Next we have Sakura Airi, and while her mask is the most straightforward out of all the characters, her placement in the series is actually really well thought out. While we do find out later that she used to be a gravure model, wearing various revealing outfits and posing suggestively, she's actually very shy and hates having a lot of attention set on her. Not only does she put up a physical barrier between herself and other people, but also the writers have deliberately kept her hidden from the story until it's in a position where she can be needed. Basically hiding her in plain sight. While she does still keep herself guarded and doesn't trust people that easily, she gradually opens up more around Aonokoji. I'll talk more about why later. It's also interesting to compare and contrast the extreme shifts in personalities that certain characters don't want others to know about. Like what we see in both Kyoko Kushida and Suzune Horikita. When we're first introduced to Kushida, she's the typical bubbly girl who's eager to make as many friends and connections as possible. She also carries around with her a strong sense of justice and wants to make sure that no one gets left behind when threatened with expulsion. However, by the end of episode 3, we see the side to her that she doesn't want us to see. A side that betrays the image and beliefs that she set up for herself. She's even willing to go as far as to blackmail Aonokoji for finding out about it, and even frame an act of sexual assault if he tells anyone, because she's that confident that more people will be on her side after she's gained their trust through her facade. Conversely, Horikita is the polar opposite of Kushida. She's cold, serious, and distant towards others, with no real intention to make any friends, and actively shuts down any attempt trying to get close to her. However, she acts completely differently around her brother, who is also the student council president. She's less biting and more vulnerable around him, which seems strange at first, but what connects these two mental states is her overall goal that she's projected throughout the series, to reach Class A. So there are at least some answers to her mysteries. I'd also like to quickly point out how the use of framing devices in certain scenes obscures even more of the details. The use of shadows and umbrellas hide our characters both physically and emotionally, or to hide a character's true intentions, they would only show part of their face. But by far the most mysterious character here is none other than our main character, Kiyotaka Aonokoji. His character is quite peculiar, as when we're first introduced to him, he's presented as the most average character of all time, literally scoring 50% on all of his exams. He has no interests, no hobbies, and no desire to do anything but survive. However, what makes him truly strange is that he has no problems getting involved in other people's situations, often offering helpful advice and wisdom, and is surprisingly good at hand-to-hand combat. He's an anomaly, in which the school has picked up on. We don't know much about his backstory, but what glimpses we have seen of it suggest something more scarring. And when asked about it, he responds with,
俺の詮索はするな。
The last thing I want to touch upon are two title screens that episodes 2 and 4 open on. It takes a great talent and skill to hide one's talent and skill, and we should not be upset that others hide the truth from us, when we hide it so often from ourselves. Both are quotes from the French philosopher François de la Rochefoucauld, who is known for his various maxims on the human condition. The writers could have chosen any quote from him, and it wouldn't have changed the overall tone of the series drastically, but they went with these two specific quotes. Why? Because they realized these quotes fit right in line in the heart of the series' subtext. Jumping back to the first question the series asked in the first episode, is society equal? And the answer seems to be slowly shifting towards no. Why? Well, it's likely because we live in a society where we're constantly hiding under our own masks, hiding behind our screens, portraying ourselves through artificial filters and lenses. Even outside the realms of the internet, even though some of us aren't actors, we're still giving a performance that we're expected to live up to. So in order to reach the top, you must make your connections and then break them once you don't need them anymore. Does this anime say something new about our society? No, not really. But it does reinforce this old statement. Don't judge a book by its cover.